What's up, guys? Cassandra Carson here from Paralandra and the Life Project, and you're listening to the Weekly Pour podcast.
Hey guys, it's Leva Leone, and you're listening to the Weekly Pour. Great metalheads, crazy music, because we all bleed metal. Ciao.
Hola, amigos. This is Billy Sheehan. You're listening to me right here and watching on the Weekly Pour podcast. Thank you.
Hey guys, this is John Karabi from, just about every band but ABBA. And you are listening to the Weekly Pour podcast. Turn it up.
I'm Logan, right?
Yes.
That's how all right, I'll go now. What's up, everybody? It's Logan from All the Pretty Things, and you're listening to TBT and Ace on the Weekly Pour podcast.
My name's Reggie, and you are listening to the Weekly Pour podcast. Thanks so much for joining the most amazing twosome out there.
It's time once again for the Weekly Pour, the show that knows everything about absolutely nothing. Here are your hosts, TBT and Ace.
What's up, everybody? Welcome if you are new to the show or if you just forgot from every other previous show. I am TBT, the guy way over there to your right. That would be Ace. And joining us in the middle, as advertised for about the past week, is country music artist Frank Fletcher. Welcome, Frank. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Let me do a proper introduction here based off of your bio. Raised on the dirt roads of southern Alabama, Frank Fletcher is a strong, genuine presence in country rock with authenticity as deep as his country roots. Windows down with rock and roll and country tracks shaking the floorboard, Frank drives the line of heavy guitars and a southern drawl. With a sound comparable to artists like Brantley Gilbert, Jason Aldean, and Cody Jinks, the country boy knows how to command a room and engage an audience with a high-octane, lively show. So once again, we welcome Frank Fletcher to the Weekly Pour podcast. Yay! I've even got a sound for that.
He likes to play with his toys there.
There's nothing wrong with that.
Hey, whoever has the most toys wins, right?
That's right.
See? I win, so there we go.
And Frank, you have the distinction of being the first country artist that we've ever had. So this is breaking new ground for us.
Absolutely.
So what kind of artists do y'all normally have then?
We try to get as many rock and heavy metal acts as possible.
We do classic rock. We've had Billy Sheehan on, John Karabi. We've had a number of them. And when we were approached about a country artist, it was a no-brainer. We said absolutely, because this is something that we're not into heavily. However, because we've been getting introduced to your stuff, which we'll get into here in a little bit, your stuff rocks.
I appreciate it. I was a rocker for years and years and years, and I grew up in South Alabama, so I spent my whole life trying not to say y'all and trying not to be country. And I don't know, probably about 5 or 6 years ago, after being on the circuit, I was sponsored by Jaeger for a while and playing all the party rock cover stuff, where I would do everything from the classic rock that you were just talking about to Pantera and Drowning Pool and everything in between. I started leaning more toward country, and especially with writing. That's when Brantley Gilbert, Jason Aldean, and all those guys really started hitting really big. And myself, I was sitting on the couch because all of the rock venues were closing up down south, and they were rebranding as country venues. And I was listening to these country artists, and I was like, this isn't country music. This is alt rock with country lyrics, and that's kind of how I've approached country music ever since. If you come see us live, we're still putting on a rock show. I mean, they're still headbanging. I'm still standing on tables and chairs. I'm trying to get people up. So it's very high energy, very crowd interactive.
Well, this is exactly the kind of stuff we were discussing, prior to going live tonight, was that crossover that you see a lot between country artists and rock, and then vice versa. Which is going to be totally different than, Taylor Swift from going country into pop. But you've got, I think you've mentioned before on previous interviews, look at Aaron Lewis with Stained,
Right.
doing a lot of his acoustic stuff.
And to me, I think I said it in one of the earlier podcasts that I was on, but to me, he's probably one of my generation's best vocalists. Like and I actually got to meet him one of the times I was up in Nashville. He was playing a writers round on a Tuesday night, and somebody was like, "Aaron Lewis is playing over there," and I was like, "Bull crap,"
Yeah, whatever.
you know. And I walked by and I was like, "Well, that's Bobby Pinson, and that's you know, okay." And Aaron Lewis was right there in the corner, and I wound up staying after the show, and he sat around and drank and hung out with everybody. He's super down to earth, super cool guy.
Did you introduce yourself or ask him in some sort of silly way? I met Alice Cooper one time, and I walked up to him and I said, "Are you who I think you are?" And he says, he had the COVID mask on, pulls the mask down. He says, "Yes," because he knew who he was. So,
Right.
Well, I
Well, I
kind
mean,
of hope he
he
knew
kind of
who he
had
was.
he had a name plaque in
he,
front of him where he was playing, so it was kind of I'm from Alabama, but I do know how to read, so it
right.
was kind of
I can mark that question out.
uh,
Well,
but yeah, Aaron Lewis is a super cool guy.
and I've talked about this. I've talked about this a lot on this podcast about country and how everything just crosses over and blends. And that, well, we talked about it with who was it? Was it Brad Paisley that was opening for Five Finger Death Punch? And how that crowd would be. What kind of crowd are you attracting? But then again, my generation, who grew up on classic rock and 80s metal, they don't listen to contemporary rock anymore. They're listening to country, and the reason is it's more guitar driven, or it's more pop
It's more
leaning.
guitar driven, and you have so many different like sub genres of country now. Like I mean, like guys like Whiskey Myers, they're country, but to me that would have been southern rock, or you know what I mean, like
Right.
that. And then you got like the Texas Red Dirt guys. I love a lot of my sound that I'm pulling is you know kind of that Texas Red Dirt with just a little bit more you know rock influence.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, that's the type of stuff that would have
Yeah.
been classic rock or would have been southern rock or had a lot of you know Skinner influences and stuff like that.
And I think it's you mentioned Whiskey Myers, and they're one of my absolute favorites. Um, they would have been right there with Skinner if it was the
Right.
'70s. Um, Now I'm not sure you even call them country, but it's country rock. You got a slash between everything, you know.
Right.
So it covers a lot of ground. But yeah, I love those guys. So if you're playing things like that, I'm all in.
Well, it's funny that the bio listed Jason Aldean and Cody Jinks because our latest single that we just released, I was talking to somebody and they said it sounded like Cody Jinks and Jason Aldean kind of put together, and I'm rolling with that all the way. Hey, no pun intended. Rolling our new single.
Yeah,
I'm rolling with that to the bank because that's kind of what we were shooting for. Was like I said, it's kind of that Texas Red Dirt with a little bit more radio friendly, you know, a little bit more rock inspired sound. But um,
Yeah.
Cody
If
Jinks happens to be one of my favorite guys that's out right now, and Jason Aldean is one of the guys that made me decide to start, chasing country music versus trying to be a hard rocker.
yeah. I sent TB.
Not to mention, I don't headbang quite as much, and my neck doesn't hurt as bad the next day.
yeah.
My throat doesn't hurt as bad from all the screams, and
So let's talk about Rollin', that was just released this previous Friday. Um, awesome track. You've got one line in there that goes something to the effect of having a 12-pack in a cooler and your girl beside you wearing a summer dress or something like that. My favorite line in the whole song.
yeah,
Um,
sundress.
yeah, that is an awesome song. Now, do you record your music in Alabama as well?
We actually shoot up to Nashville and use the studios in Nashville. My producer, David Norris with North Song Productions, is in Nashville. we've done some tracking in Alabama. We've used some other, but most of our stuff, it's because we tour so much and we spend so much time on the road. It makes more sense for us just to shoot up there, knock it all out in one big block,
Right.
and we'll go up there for 3 days and just kill ourselves and record 4 or 5 songs um, in 3 days.
Sure.
Right. That's what we were wondering how the independent thing worked. Like, how do you put something like that together? When you decide to go on this route, where do you start?
Debt, lots and lots of debt.
Fair enough.
Well, and that's probably
Yeah,
why
I
you're
mean,
touring so
I
much.
mean, it cracks me up, and I'm not knocking anybody, and I don't want to get in trouble, anybody mad at me for saying this, but it cracks me up to see people list themselves as a Nashville recording artist, because anybody can be a Nashville recording artist if you want to go spend the money in Nashville.
Right.
Um, so that's always kind of been funny, and I mean, I've been listed as a Nashville recording artist too, and I mean, that's the way they booked me, and I kind of just shake my head at it. But yeah, we've been lucky enough. I've recorded in Omni Studios quite a few times, and Ocean Way. So that's a couple of the big boy studios in Nashville, and have been lucky enough to work with some really talented guys, and especially like some of the studio musicians. It's just insane the types of names that you can work with if you can get your foot in the door.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I don't know if this is true, but I once heard that Brooks and Dunn were both recording studio musicians and songwriters who ended up, going out on their own and look at them now.
I don't know about them, but like Chris Stapleton, how many hits did he write before he stepped out on his own?
Right.
Brantley Gilbert, Brantley Gilbert wrote all kinds of stuff for Jason Aldean when he first got started.
Well, yeah, we
There's
talked about
so many. The list just goes on and on and
Hardy.
on.
Hardy was one because we were listening to Hardy. 2 months ago before that album came out.
Right.
He's another
I was just
songwriter.
listening to Hardy this afternoon. Believe it or not, we just had
Yeah.
a long conversation about him. A buddy of mine from a hard rock band called Awaken the Giants. Um, we grew up together, and we're the two out of our high school group. We all had a band together in high school and played and stuff, and we were the only two that stuck with it. And he's on tour with them, and I'm out doing my thing. But he happened to be in town with a new tour bus, so he swung by the house to let me check out the new tour bus. So we were sitting on the bus, and we were jamming Hardy, talking about how he was a crossover. I mean, he just played. I think he played Rockville this year,
Oh, wow.
and some of his stuff is just stupid heavy. I mean, it's awesome. It's awesome hard rock stuff, but he's still like that song, "The Mockingbird and the Crow." I mean, that's really how the industry is. These guys are signing deals and writing what they have to write, but if they make it big enough, but that's like Kid Rock is the exact opposite. Kid Rock, I watched an interview with him, and he said he always wanted to be a country guy, and when he was trying to get in, there was no way for him to do country, so that's when he came out with Ball with the Ball, and he was Kid Rock, and then as soon as he got big enough to do what he wanted to do, now he's out running around with Hank Jr. and partying and being a country guy.
Now he's a Nashville recording artist.
Well, yeah.
Right.
I've often wondered about that. I've never dug into Kid Rock's background, but that was something I thought of was how do you go from, the Bullfrog King or whatever to, I call him a dirty Bob Seger. That's what he sounds like to me, with that country tinge. But how do you go from this to this? Where do you make that decision to change, And it worked out. It worked out great for him.
I think some of it's the industry. I think some of it's just whatever door you can get kicked in. Like I said, some of these guys, once they make their way through the door, then they do what they want to do. But it's got to sell. I mean, unfortunately, that's the side of the thing is it's got to be marketable. to get through the door. So, um,
Right.
you
You know, and you're doing it, I think, this way independently because it gives you more power and control over what you want to do, and more maybe even more authenticity, maybe because Nashville
well,
seems to
that
just
and
manufacture people. They just manufacture people and churn them out, and they don't feel real.
that's the thing I like about Texas country versus, to me, the red dirt Texas is they back the independent artists way more. Now you have to be in Texas or from Texas to really be picked up in that area. But to me, I feel like Nashville's like corporate country, and Texas is more, you know, from the songwriter side of things.
Almost more genuine.
Uh,
Genuine, yeah.
so we're trying to toe the line of both. Like, be genuine, be ourselves, but put enough marketability, if that's even a word.
It is tonight.
It is.
If I usually say that that's a Jaeger word if I say something on stage like that, but I haven't drank any Jaeger today, so. Uh, but so we're trying to toe the line and play both sides, where we're still genuine, we're still following the sound that we want to follow, but there's enough in there that it is radio friendly and it is able to be packaged.
Right.
Right. Because I don't like looking at a country video with an Abercrombie and Fitch model telling me he grew up on a dirt road somewhere, because I'm not buying it. It's not real to me. I want something that feels authentic, and I think what I heard in Roland was authentic. Uh, several of the tunes I picked up that you've got feel authentic, and your writing is authentic because you're writing yourself most of that, right?
So the first EP I released, like I said, I had just gotten into country music, so I wasn't really sure what sound, what vibe to go for. So I'd go to Nashville and I'd be lucky enough to co-write with these people. But if you look at the work as a whole, every song had a different sound. It was, one sounded like Kenny Chesney, one sounded like Brantley Gilbert. So I was constantly doing these different styles, and so this EP, this group of songs that we're getting ready to release, including Roland, was mostly written by me, my guitar player Wesley Brown, and my drummer Ben Bird. So I feel like we have found our direction, our sound, and it's cohesive. So we're excited about all the songs we're getting ready to release.
Do we have a date for that release?
So we just released Rollin' June 23rd. I don't want to get in trouble because I
Yeah,
don't
we don't
know
want that to happen.
management company wise. I don't know if we're actually set on what we had discussed. I
Okay.
just know that we're going to be releasing a new single every so often, sooner rather than later, and we'll put it like that.
That's perfect. Absolutely. I know as we've been going through your catalog and listening to some of the different things, "Midnight Makes Me Crazy" is probably my favorite song that you've put out so far.
So that was our last single, and we were actually really lucky. It charted on Apple Music and actually got picked up on Apple Music's Best New Country Song chart, and it charted on Spotify. Spotify gave me my little blue check mark, so I'm
You're real.
verified on Spotify. So we were really really happy with that one. And that was, once again, it was still me, my guitar player, my drummer, and then a former bass player of mine. He lives one town over, and he loves writing. And we made a deal that I would, if I was too busy, if I was on the road and I had an idea pop up or a thought process, we would just, I'd shoot him a couple of lines, he'd shoot me a couple of lines, and he kind of mapped the song out. And then when we got back into town, we all sat down with it and then mixed it up and turned it into what it is today. But um, that's kind of what we're having to do now with the writing stuff. Is I think everybody in the band has notes, and if you open our notes, there's probably 8 or 9 different songs that either have a verse or a chorus, or there's 3 or 4 lines or an idea or a hook. And then if you have enough time off the road, I was just talking to my drummer today. I was like, we got to get in the practice room. We got to get together and write at some point in time. But I mean, just the other week we played 10 shows in 12 days, and that spans from Laconia, New Hampshire, all the way down to Gulf Shores, Alabama, including Panama City Beach, Florida, and Bainbridge, Georgia, in that run. So,
yeah,
not a lot of time to write when there's not a lot of time to sleep or do anything else for that matter.
for sure. Now, I know we've looked at your tour dates, and again, that's another thing we were looking at before we went on the air. And you're hitting the road like nonstop. A lot of southern dates, Alabama and Florida. You're hitting some Mississippi, and the big one that I noticed, of course, was the Sturgis dates that you've got coming up. That has got to be awesome because I noticed that you've got some days where you're doing more than one show per day.
I just picked up a couple other shows, and the ink's not even dry on the contract, so I can't say it out loud, but it is a bucket list venue for me where Sturgis is concerned, and we'll just leave it at that.
Okay.
But to be able to play that show, we're going to have to play 3 shows in one day.
Man.
Ooh.
But like I said, it's a bucket list show, so
kind of hard to pass that one up.
Are you looking at this like a challenge? You have to look at it like a challenge. We got to do this.
So I still do all our own booking. And so when I'm booking, I have the booking hat on, and I'm looking at routing and money and show, and we're going to make this much money. And then when I get out on the road and we're playing it, I'm like, who booked this? They need to be beat. They need to be beat up. They're fired. And I know my guys hate me when it comes to that. Last year for Sturgis, I told the guys, I said, look, this is our first time actually getting to play Sturgis. We were supposed to play the year before that, and something happened. The ball got dropped with some rooms with their booking agents and stuff. So we kind of got booted last minute, so this past year we got to play, and I told them, I was like, we're going to Sturgis. I'm going to pick up every show that I can possibly pick up, and people are going to know who we are by the time we leave. We crammed 31 shows in 18 days.
Yeah, I won't even mention that we counted, but yeah. I was looking for a typo or something.
This year's not going to be quite as many, thankfully, because that like to kill us. But we picked up some more venues. So, and just name a few. I know we're going to be at One Eye Jack's again. We're going to be at the Knuckle. We're going to be at Kickstands. I know the week after the rally, we're going to be back over in Deadwood at Saloon 10. And then there's, like I said, two other venues that the ink's still drying on.
Right. Yeah, we could leave that. We'll just leave that as it is. Now, you've mentioned that you were into music and stuff when you were in high school. What was your high school?
I went to Daleville High School in Daleville, Alabama.
Okay, now
was probably, let's say I had like 114 in my graduating class.
Okay, see, I've got a daughter that actually lives in Summerdale.
Okay.
So I'm quite familiar with that area. In my my military days, I was stationed at Pensacola for quite a while. So when I was
Fort Rucker, which I mean it's Novacell now, but Mother Rucker. My dad's actually retired W5, so I grew up as an Army brat.
Nice.
But my grandfather on my mom's side, we owned a car garage in Daleville for 50 years. He opened in 1963. He got back from the Korean War and was like, I'm done with it, and worked in Dothan for a little bit, and then moved to Daleville when it was still Camp Rucker.
Right.
Took care of all the guys through Vietnam and stuff like that. So I grew up turning wrenches in my granddaddy's car garage and playing music anytime I could on the weekends and stuff.
Well, that's a very bona fide country background. Right there. You
I
probably
didn't
got
have
an old
much
truck or
choice in the
two.
matter. I remember, I think I was 11, and my parents were driving across country uh, that summer, and I was asleep on the pallet, like this little pallet that my grandma had made for me in the living room, and I woke up to my granddad kind of nudging me with his foot. I looked up, and he said, You eating dinner tonight?" "Yes, sir." "Then you better get your butt up and come to work." And that was, like I said, that was the summer I was 11, and I was working 50-hour work weeks. You know, I'd go to work with him in the morning, and I would go home when he went home. And by the time I was 13 or 14, I was doing front end alignments and stuff by myself, and just, you know, spring break, Christmas break, summer break, anytime I wasn't in school, I was greasy.
Yeah. Now we see where the work ethic comes from. Why we're doing 260 shows, and yeah, it's that drive to work.
That old school mentality, granddaddy, it was do it right or don't do it at all, and that meant do it right or get your butt kicked and then do it right anyway.
And then you don't
Because
get
there's
dinner.
not doing it all wasn't an option.
Yeah, I grew up on a farm, so we were out, yeah, dealing with cows and baling hay and all that crap in the summer. It was brutal.
Yeah, I just kicked I just kicked loose of about 5 acres, and that was another thing is I'd post a picture of me on the tractor like bush hogging or something like that, and I was, you know, getting ready. I talked about getting some chickens and some livestock, you know, just then. As much as I'm on the road, it was just too much to take care of, you know. But it was funny. People would see me post up on me on a tractor, and they were like, "Wow, a country artist actually doing country boy things."
Instead of just posing on a brand new tractor.
Right.
Yeah, it's like Ronald Reagan chopping wood all over again. Yeah.
What?
You remember that when he ran, you
Yeah.
know, took the presidential breaks and they'd film him on his ranch. That was where he'd take that was his refuge. That's what made me think
Right.
of if you kept that and had your chickens and your farm, that could be a great little refuge for you to go back and ground yourself with, you know, if you had
If I
time.
can get to this next level, you know, we're pushing really hard to get up maybe one or two more rungs would be a lot more sustainable, a lot more comfortable, you know, lifestyle for everybody in the band. So that's what we're really pushing for. Because I mean, 200 plus shows a year is great, but it's not sustainable.
Right.
Um,
Right.
then
And you
that's
can stop yourself out venues. Rock bands do it. I think all the time. I think you see diminishing returns at a high level. If Def Leppard comes to Indianapolis, you know, every single year, well, eventually those shows are going to start nosediving.
yeah. We try, especially with because for us, our local region, we probably about a 3.5 4 hour uh, you know, radius of our hometown. So we try really hard to to give it like a good, you know, at least 8 week window before we come back to another spot. Every so often, if they have something big going on, you know, some of the venues will have us like 2 weekends in a row. But then if we do that, we try to go hit the road. We'll go, like a matter of fact, over the next 2 weeks, I know we're playing in Fort Walton Beach both both weekends. We're playing this weekend and next weekend. But it's Fort Walton Beach and it's 4th of July weekend. So one, you've got the tourist side of things, and
Absolutely.
two, we're not coming back until September or October because the end of July we're in Minnesota for a couple of dates, and then we hit Sturgis, and you know, so we won't even be back to Florida for another month or so. So that's something that most bands, especially the cover bands, don't really realize.
Right.
You know, there's a town that we play in, and we love to play in it. But you could play 7 nights a week if you wanted to in this town, and there's certain bands that do that. They play 7 nights a week in that one town, and they don't leave that town, and it shows. You know, you're
Yeah.
already seeing the diminishing returns on their shows, and I've talked to a few of them because I'm friends with them. Like, you got to travel. You got to get out, even if it's an hour and a half or 2 hours. So,
Right. It's worth it to, get out of the cycle for a minute and let people forget you or miss you when you're gone. We can't miss you
right.
if you won't go away. So, when you had your rock band, what were your influences then?
So, in the rock realm of things, I was a '90s alt rock kid all the way. Bush, Matchbox 20, Hootie and the Blowfish. Um, but I got with these guys where we started getting heavier and heavy. I love Godsmack when Godsmack came out, and but we kept getting heavier and heavier. And one day they looked at me, they're like, "We're gonna do Pantera," and I'm like, "Who's gonna sing that?" And they're like, "You are." And I was like, "No, I don't know how to." And I actually over the next year or so, I learned how to scream and growl, and so we were doing Pantera and Drowning Pool and Disturbed and stuff like that. So it wasn't like super super crazy heavy. It was still radio friendly, rock, but it was the heavy side of stuff.
You were not doing two
Uh,
shows a night singing like that.
no, no, I wasn't. No, we were doing about two, maybe three shows a week, but we were still all working day jobs. So I'd work, 80 hours a week in the car garage and still go play 2 or 3 nights a week.
So, what would you say right now is the most difficult thing about being a musician?
Hmm. Probably just the constant grind. I mean, a lot of people, they hear you say that you're going to play a gig. They see you on stage, smiling and putting on the show, but they don't realize that I do all my own booking. That's 24/7. We do our own maintenance on our bus. We're having to remodel our bus before we hit the road on this one. It's all the behind the scenes stuff. It's I mean, people don't understand the travel, the upkeep for the travel. I mean, it's just to try to make it as a career. It's its own breathing entity. I mean, it
Sure.
just consumes so much time and so much effort, and that's where it becomes a labor of love.
Right. Yeah, you got to really want to do it because, I mean, you may be hauling your own gear, you may be your own guitar tech uh, until you get to another level and you can have those luxuries. Uh, but,
Right.
we talked to Milienko of Steelheart a while back. And, one of the things that rock musicians now do are drop in dates. They sound great. You fly in, you hit the airport, go to the venue, you play a show, you leave, right? But what Milienko explained to us was, well, you got to still drive there, and it may be 3 hours from the airport. Uh,
Right.
yeah, and you've got to make sure your gear gets there, and there's all other kinds of worries. So it sounds great because you're not on a tour bus, but there's other headaches with it too.
Yeah, and like we're working on our tour bus, getting it ready, but um, we were kind of like Goldilocks in the three buses for a while because we had a big 40-foot bus, and then COVID hit, and all the national acts went home, so you couldn't open for a national act, and all the big festivals and stuff. So I was like, why am I paying for this 40-foot bus? So we got rid of that, and then got a little bus, and then that we started traveling again. So then the little bus was too little, so we got a bigger bus, and then we decided to, all right, well, we're really traveling again, so we need another big 40-foot bus. So we've got this Prevost, and my guitar player's in a wheelchair. So we cut out a big door on the side and mounted in this wheelchair lift in the back and did all the work ourselves. But meanwhile, we have done 2 cross country trips since we've got this bus. Both of them were in my 2018 Chevy Silverado, crammed in like sardines, pulling the trailer. Um, and after we did the first one, my transmission went out. So there was, you know, $5,000 thrown into a transmission to get it back on the road to be able to go to New Hampshire for Laconia Bike Rally. So
It's 2018.
It's always something.
It's a 2018. It shouldn't have died yet. You're putting some miles on that truck.
I was about to say, it's already been cross country 3 times, and I've had it for a year. So, and that's just cross country. Like I said, our local regional routes, you're talking about three or 4 hours. That just this weekend, let's see, Friday we're in Wedowee, Alabama. So that's about 3.5 hours from our hometown.
I'm glad you
Then we
pronounced
go to Fort. What I had to be, and that's still not even how they say it where they're at. But when I first saw it, I thought it was Weedoo-wee.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
I always tell them, I'm like, it's spelled like weed, but it's Wedowee, Alabama. There's a lake. It's a lake town. It's beautiful over there. But that's like 3.5 hours one direction. Then the next day we're in Fort Walton Beach, which is 2.5 hours from our house the other direction. And then we're in St. George Island Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, which is probably like another 2.5, 3 hours from Fort Walton Beach. So that poor truck, I always joke and I say I spend more time behind my steering wheel than I do anywhere else in the world.
So tell us about your live shows. How's that crowd interaction? I'm sure I've watched some of your stage shows that you guys have done, and you get really into it. And is that something that just keeps driving you to keep doing it and making those shows just as badass as they can be?
I've always loved the crowd interaction side of things. That's what really gets it. If I have a crowd that's giving me energy, I can give out more energy, and as I give out more energy, then they get more energized in it. And by the end of it, it's just this frenzy. But like our CD release party, or the single release party we just had. Before we even got on stage, there was a family came up, and they had a group of kids with them, and the kids had never been it was a family-friendly event, but they had never been to a concert. So they wanted to, post for pictures, and then I think I gave them a few like guitar picks and some little, merch giveaway stuff. And during the first couple of songs, one of the little girls stood in front of the stage. She didn't dance, she didn't bounce up and down, she wasn't singing along, but her eyes were just as big as pancakes, and she was just mesmerized, and you could see it clicking. And that's the type of stuff that really makes what we do worthwhile to me, is seeing not just kids. I just told a story on one of the podcasts where a guy came up and requested a song, and we were like, sure, yeah, we could do that. So we did the song, and all of a sudden he gets on the dance floor with his like 75, 80-year-old mother, and they're both crying. And it turns out that his dad was a musician, just passed away like 3 years ago. I mean, 3 weeks ago. Sorry, 3 weeks ago. And that was the song that he would sing to his mom all the time.
Oh wow!
Oh wow!
And so it, just heart, it touches you. I mean, it's so that's the type of stuff that I really really enjoy, and I like getting out in the crowd, and I like being able to talk to our fans, and a lot of our fans have become friends and even considered family over the years. It's crazy. I'll have people drive 3 or 4 hours to see my show, and I'm still just like, it's really cool, and it melts my heart, and I appreciate it, but I'm like, why me? I mean, I'm just so I'm very appreciative to everybody that supports us, because I realize that if it wasn't for those people, I wouldn't have a gig. I mean, if it wasn't for people coming to see us and enjoying the music and enjoying the show, then we wouldn't have a career.
Yeah, exactly. And it helps you keep that passion alive, which is awesome. So speaking of that, if you could choose anyone to collaborate with that you haven't yet, who would you pick?
Whoa.
We're going deep.
It'd have to be either Cody Jinks or Aaron Lewis. I mean, those are my two go-tos right now.
Perfect.
Right. I sent TBT a Cody Jinks song today for him to get an idea of what, for me to understand where you're coming from. I want to hear where, he's coming from. And of course, that guy's the real deal. He's doing the same or did the same thing that you're working on. It's this whole,
He's, as far as I know, I think he's still independent. I think he
yeah,
might have just started his own record label, if I'm not
he did.
mistaken. Um, but those Texas guys, they have something special over there where they can be a superstar and never leave the state of Texas. Which is incredible. But he's selling out arenas and still independent.
Right. And again, it goes back to that authenticity. He feels authentic. And you feel like he doesn't give two shits whether Nashville likes him or not. It doesn't matter to him. And it doesn't matter if he's playing, in front of 50 people or 50,000 people. You know,
I actually talked to a company that helped him in the very beginning, and they basically said that his management team was genius. They found about 3 or 4 markets and just blew him up. Spent all their energy in just like 3 or 4 markets, but that market base of those 3 or 4 markets was big enough that everybody in those 3 or 4 markets thought he was a superstar already, just because they had put that much effort into it. Well, then all of a sudden, the market right next to that market was like, "Wait a minute, what are we missing here?" And he kind of just spider webbed out from that, which was
yeah.
cool. I mean, and that's the company I was talking to. They were like, that was genius. It was genius the way they just hammered 3 or 4 markets and made him a superstar in that one area.
That is pretty good marketing and it's a good idea. Radio play is important still to this day, I believe, too, because it's still the top format country music is. You know, how do you break into that radio format? Or if you knew, yeah, I mean, it's not easy
Once
because
again,
you
and
can.
I hate to say it like this. I hate it. And unless you just luck out and you have lightning in a bottle, from what I've learned up through the industry, debt, lots and lots and lots of debt.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just, um, it's you just nowadays there is so much. I mean, like Spotify, I think they said something about like 40,000 songs being uploaded every day. Like all the markets are so saturated that you just have to. It's not even like buying plays like you would think, like money, buy. It's just you have to put so much money behind the advertisement and the marketing and to be able to set your song out that there's a lot of super talented, super amazing singer songwriters that have stuff that you'll never hear just because there's no way for them to push it out there.
Right. The great thing about the internet is that, anyone can have a podcast. The problem is everyone has a podcast. It's the same with
Right.
music. You can throw anything on Apple Music, uh, which just sounds great. But then people like you are fighting for that audience all the time, and people with legitimate talent and great songs, and you got to fight to get heard sometimes, and it's tough. I get it.
One of those good things, oh, that you mentioned earlier about "Midnight Makes Me Crazy," being awarded that Apple Award after you just said 40,000 songs a day. I mean, that's quite an accomplishment for you alone. I mean, that's incredible.
It definitely it was definitely a surprise for us. I mean, we had a little bit of push behind it, but not for it to have taken off like that. It meant a lot to us. And it's crazy now because, like I said, we travel nationwide, and with Spotify and Apple Music and stuff. It just happened. We were in Deadwood, South Dakota for St. Patrick's Day, and there was a whole group of people from Texas, and we started playing one of our originals, and they were like, "Wait, you're on our playlist. Like, we listen to this song all the time." Like, and it was super cool for us. I mean, it's still just, um, like I said, we're in this really weird in between bubble of one one day we'll open for a huge national act and play to 5 or 10,000 people, and then the next we're still in a dive bar playing to 15 or 20, and we're just riding the wave as it comes.
Exactly. Now, with all of these acts, and you do not have to name anybody because again, we don't want to get you in trouble. But what is the absolute worst piece of advice you've been given as far as your music career as it goes? If at all, you may not have.
Not yet.
I don't I don't I don't really know, because I'm hard headed and I grew up that old school way of I'm gonna make the square block fit through the circle hole no matter what. So if I thought it was not good advice, I'd probably just let it go in ear, in one ear and out the other, and just kind of nodded, as it was happening. I have seen some things happen on the road from other artists that I know I don't want to be, and I don't want to act like that. You know, promoting that you're going to have a meet and greet and then refusing to get off of the bus, and things of that nature.
Oh wow.
Not taking 5 minutes to pose for a couple of pictures on your way out the door. And to me, that those types of things, I just, like I said, I'm appreciative to everybody that comes out and sees us play. And if I had enough time in the day, I would sit at the venue and I would take pictures and sign autographs with every single person that wanted it. I don't understand these artists that act like they're better than their crowd. I mean, once again, they wouldn't have a career if it wasn't for them. So I've seen that a few times. Not going to name any names, and it hasn't happened a lot, but when it does happen, it just kind of, I just don't understand it. I mean, we put ourselves in this position. We wanted to be musicians. We wanted to be on stage. We wanted the people like I said, the only way to have a career in this as a performer is to have people that want to see you. So it just doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah, it's kind of important to stay humble, no matter how large you get. And I'll be honest with you, we've ran into it a few times with trying to get guests on the podcast. They've been like, well, you don't have 10,000 followers, so we're gonna skip you. And it's kind of like, we're doing the same thing you're doing at your career. You got to start somewhere. Whether you got 10,000 or you've got 10, if you're still putting out a product.
Hey, there's 11 people watching right now, and if all 11 of those people, 11 people go to Frank Fletcher Music and hit the like button, that's 11 likes that I didn't have before this podcast. Right. And I would appreciate it greatly to those 11 that if you go to Frank Fletcher Music and hit the like button and maybe even download our new single, Rolling, that'd mean a lot to us.
Exactly. Now, I do have 8 different devices playing the podcast, so I think 8 of them are mine. So for those other 3,
that's my wife.
Gotcha.
Oh, okay. Yeah, and for
your
anybody
wife can come like our page, I'm okay with that.
Yeah, and for anybody that is watching or listening after the live broadcast, we have on our Facebook page and on our Instagram, we've been pounding Frank's information out there. So definitely go out and take a look at it. Download his new single. Wait for those new tour dates. Wait for those new songs to come out because they're coming. And I'm telling you, just from what we've listened to, you're gonna make it. Patience is a virtue, but you're gonna make it. I definitely see that.
I said something the other day to somebody, and I can't, but it was, everybody's an overnight success, but everybody forgets about the 10 or 15 or 20 years that they had before they were an overnight success. There's so many artists that you watch their stories and they were like, I was about to give up. I was really literally like hanging by a thread on my last leg, about to give up, and that's when something hit for them. So I'm hoping that we don't have to go that far before we get to the next level, but even through COVID and everything, we've been lucky enough to I feel like we've just slowly kind of been building momentum little bit by little bit, kind of the old school way. I mean, that's that's the biggest thing that's actually holding me back is what you guys do. We're out touring all the time. We're out shaking hands and face to face and seeing people and playing shows. But my social media numbers don't match what our tour dates do.
Exactly.
And unfortunately, we're in a day and time where, everything's social media driven.
Right.
So once again, for all those followers and watchers, go hit the like button, please. But no,
You have a
we
physical
love being
CD.
on the road. We love touring. We love seeing people face to face and getting out there and that crowd experience. That's what it's all about to us.
You have a physical CD that, or for the EP when it comes out.
The new EP, we don't as of yet. I still have, I have a few Country Chrome EP CDs left in the merch booth. But the new EP, I think what we're going to do is we're going to release each song as a single this time first, and then release the whole compilation of the songs.
Yeah. Well, the reason I ask is apparently my friend Kathy, who has Music and More Records, record store in New York, she says she'll sell your stuff. So there's someone that is willing to sell your product right there.
Heck yeah.
So,
I'll
so
definitely have to
however
get
that
some
works,
info from you.
yeah, however that you guys work that out, that's what you got right there. So
That'd be cool.
You mentioned releasing it a single at a time. That too is also starting to become a thing in rock music, even where it's not the way things are released are spread out so far that sometimes when the album comes out, kind of the buildup is gone. So just to get something on rock radio, it might be better just to do singles. I don't know if that's a good trend, but that's a trend that's happening.
I think it's just because of the digital age. I think it's because of Spotify and Apple Music and stuff. I mean,
Yep.
When was the last time you walked into an actual CD store? Like, when have you gone to like a mall and there been a CD store where you could go buy CDs?
Right. The only reason I do is because I go visit my friend at her record store, so I'm in there
Kathy,
quite a bit.
right?
Yep,
Yes,
I'm
Kathy.
quite a bit.
Right.
But yeah, and that used to be
And
something
then,
we did all the time. We did it all the
yeah,
time.
I loved going. I mean, I spent a lot of time in CD stores, and we had our big binders full of our CDs that we flip through while we were driving down the road. But think
Yep.
about that too. You go sit in a brand new car. They don't have a CD player anymore.
Nope.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, I mean, how many, in the late '90s, how many, or early '90s, how many 8-track players were running around? So,
Right.
I mean, I guess it's just kind of a thing that you gotta, the industry changes and you have to kind of adapt, and I think that's where you're seeing nobody releasing full projects or full CDs anymore. They'll release singles at a time, and unless your name is like Luke Combs or Morgan Wallen or somebody like that, because then of course you've got the following and the buzz, and you can drop a 36
30
song.
songs. That's crazy.
It's crazy.
Just
And
and for
then
the record, Kathy just stated that she still has her 8-tracks, by the way.
never met her, but I like her.
I know
That's
we're getting
awesome.
close to time here, but I've got to ask your support. I'm gonna take it your family is just behind you and pushing you to keep you going through all this.
As much as they can be. I'm never
Sure.
home, so
Well, yeah, I wasn't
you
gonna
know.
mention that, but
I am lucky enough that like I said, I am from a small town, and my mom, my stepdad, my dad, and my stepmom, they all still live in the same town. So when I'm in town, it's easier. My sister still lives in that town, so it's easier. You know, it's they support me, and they're definitely proud of me, and I don't think that they realized when I was 14 or 15 and I was sneaking in bars to play shows that it would have become what it has, become. I can definitely honestly say that this is a career. Um, so, everybody has their own idea of making it, so to speak.
Right.
And like I said, we're still climbing the ladder. We're still building momentum. We're not where we want to be yet, and we're going to keep going until we get there. But I can honestly say that we are extremely blessed to be in the situation that we're in and have the success that we've had. So,
Absolutely. Well, Frank, we want to thank you for joining us tonight. I'm sure this one's going to get a lot of plays and a lot of listen as you progress with your career, and people start hearing rolling and getting that going. Um, if everybody that is listening or has watched the podcast, be sure to go to our social media. You will get a link up to Frank's. Be sure to go and click on his Instagram, his TikTok, his Facebook, the website, everything. Click those. The more clicks, I mean, you just mentioned it yourself, Frank, with the whole, it's digital media, it's everything, it's social media. Everything's either a hashtag or a click. So get out
yeah,
there, click on his stuff, help him, help us, help you, or however that's supposed to go. But yeah,
right, right.
yeah, whatever. Frank, we're
What
going to
you said.
ask you to stick on here for just a minute as we bring this to a close. Of course, we want to thank everybody that was in the chat. Kathy, some of our regulars, Kathy, Shannon, Natalie, the McFarland thing. You guys are in there. Everybody that's listening, of course, giving a shout out to Kathy with Music and More Records. And of course, Jason with Bad Company Barbecue. I saw Lou in the chat earlier as well. So we'll get this to a close, and we thank you once again, Frank, for joining us. We wish you nothing but the best, and when you're up in the Indiana area, be sure to give us a shout, because we're going to come see you.
All right. Well, let me put something together in Indiana for you.
That'll work. All right, we'll be back next week with I don't know, maybe a guest or not. Ace is already shaking his head, but thanks for joining us, and we'll see you guys again next Tuesday.